purpose of this blipvert is to inspire you to create your own sounds and own samples. You don't need a hardware sampler to do this. There are plenty of cheap and free virtual plug-in samplers that will do the job just fine. This is about loving the process that helps you make your art. Using weird instruments, writing on a typewriter, crushing pigments in a bowl to make your own paint or makeup. It's fun to get your hands dirty and enjoy the craftsmanship of your art. I've had a love affair with the E-mu EMAX sampler for about 30 years. I own 4. 2 are working, 1 is being repaired, and 1 is needed for parts. This instrument inspired me to get into industrial and to push new sonic territory. My love affair with samplers started in my early teens when I was introduced to Depeche Mode's album, Construction Time Again. It blew my mind, specifically the tracks Pipeline and Shame. This album was built with samples of metallic bangs and clangs and scrapes, which was played like musical instruments and percussion. Non-musical sounds and noise became musical. The song Pipeline was built with samples from a junkyard. The track was recorded with no EQ and no effects. It sounds so raw, it's like pure industrial. Depeche Mode used an E-mu emulator, a New England Digital Synclavier 2, and a PPG Wave 2.2. The next album to seal my addiction to samplers was Jean-Michel Jarre's 1984 album, Zuluk. This album was also mostly built using samplers, Fairlight's CMI and the E-mu emulator once again. This album used the human voice in many different languages to create an epic soundtrack. I was not aware this type of music was possible. It amazed me how the samples were recorded, edited, and used musically and rhythmically to make something completely new. The craftsmanship needed to make a cold, computerized machine make a warm, living, emotional response is still something I strive for. A few years later, I visited a music store, and there, in the middle of the showroom, was an EMAXII keyboard, and I immediately fell in love. When I turned 20, I had worked hard and saved up a small fortune. I could have bought a car, or paid rent for a year, or gone on an overseas trip, but no. I bought an EMAX, and I still have it. It's in working condition, and it's on almost every ANGELSPIT track, and it's sitting behind me right now, staring at me. The EMAX is basically an emulator 2, which is a classic sampler. The inner workings of the emulator 2 were improved and condensed and shipped as the EMAX. There's a lot of debate as to which one sounds better. I love the EMAX. The EMAX has a big, bold, distinctive sound. It cuts through the mix and adds character. It also has analog filters and VCAs, which makes it sound gritty and fat. The EMAX is an 8-bit sampler with 12-bit digital to analog conversion. Its sample rate ranges from 10K to 42K, which means its highest quality is clean and its lowest quality is dirty. The technology behind the digital audio used in an MP3 and the digital audio used in a sampler are basically the same. If a digital recording device records sound at 44.1K 16-bit, which is CD quality, it means it will slice each second of sound into 44,100 snapshots. It will then analyze each of these snapshots with 16 bits of data, capturing tone, volume, and pitch of the sound. The result is a massive string of data which can be stored, played back, and manipulated. With the EMAX, I sample at 16K 8-bit, which means it slices each second into 16,000 snapshots and analyzes it with 8 bits of data, which means it's far lower quality, but it actually sounds unique and awesome, reminiscent of the sounds of Construction Time Again and Zuluk. I often go on sound safaris, recording everything from toilet seats at truck stops to banging metal in junkyards. And seriously, I actually do record the slamming of a toilet seat in a highway truck stop, as the toilet seat has got a great snap when it closes, and the small bathroom has the best reverb. It makes the best snare you've ever heard. During these safaris, I like to take a handheld portable recorder with a built-in microphone. A wind guard is important because wind pops will ruin a recording. It's extremely difficult to filter out a wind pop. It's important to have the background as quiet as possible. Make sure the input of the recording device is correctly set, with the maximum volume hitting around -6 dB. Don't let it distort. It's ideal to record in a studio. Use a good condenser microphone. Make sure the background is quiet and the input volume peaks at -6 dB. Do not distort the recording. When recording the sound, try and get 3 versions of the same sound: a soft version, a medium version, and a loud version. Try to record the audio at a higher quality as possible. I use 96K 24-bit. But enough talk. Let's sample. So this is a tin can and it's connected to a tube, so the whole sound sounds bigger and deeper. It's just a regular sounding tin. And now we're gonna try a high-tech scalpel. Awesome. I have no idea what this thing is. That's fantastic. I don't know why it has Aboriginal paintings on them. So it's basically a membrane, a spring, and a tube. And what happens is it just makes awesome shit. I'm also using my incredibly high-tech cardboard tube to make it sound lower. Oh, it's thunderous. It is actually a really cool device. It cost me like $10. So once again, I am using my high-tech spoon. That is such a beautiful sound. Import the audio into your audio editing software. Take the best sounds, try and get a soft version, a medium version, and a loud version of the same sound. Use a high pass filter to remove anything below 50 or 100 cycles, as this will add unwanted rumble when you play it back through the sampler. Normalize the sound so the loudest point of the sound will peak around -0.1 dB. Next, add compression. 3:1 at -9 dB with a fast attack and a fast decay sounds great. Apply a noise filter to get rid of the unwanted noise. Truncate the start so the sound begins immediately. Then truncate the end so when the sound ends, the file ends. Make sure there's no silence in there. You can fade away the tail of the sound, but this might interfere with looping. We're going to look at looping in next month's blipvert. Remember to clearly name the files. Next, I reduced the sample rate to 16K so it's compatible with the EMAX. Actually, it's 15.625K. The EMAX throws a tantrum if you give it anything at 16K exactly. FYI. The EMAX can sample at a higher sample rate, but the EMAX sounds gritty at 16K. Plus, if I want a high fidelity sample, I'm gonna go to the K2000 or the Emulator 4. We're gonna look at those next month. The EMAX's unique strength is its gritty samples. So let's make some gritty samples. You can sample straight into the EMAX, or you can digitally export it. The EMAX doesn't understand DOS. It doesn't have a USB port on it. It only has a floppy drive that reads this really bizarre EMAX operating system. You need special software if you want to talk to the EMAX from a computer. USB, flash drives, and SCSI updates are available, but I haven't got around to doing that yet. I use free DOS software called EMXP to dump the samples via MIDI. It takes time, but hey, this is 2019 talking to 1986. Once the samples have been dumped onto the EMAX, we place them across its keyboard and we try and tune them. Tuning a sample can be hard because sometimes the sample has a complex harmonic overtone. The sound might have a bass frequency with a dominant harmonic ring. The easiest way to tune a sample is to play a scale. This will let you hear its note. Since these samples are only 16K, which is low quality, the samples start to crackle and gurgle and make this high-pitched frequency when you play them an octave or lower. This is called the Nyquist frequency. God, I love that deep, crackling Nyquist frequency distortion. Can you hear that high-end ring? Love it! Remember how I suggested getting 3 versions of the same sound? Well, I placed the different versions across the keyboard so I can play the same note pitch but using different key versions. This means I can have different sounds playing at the same note, which gives the sound an organic feel. This C is a different sample to this C, which is a different sample to this C. So I can play a tune and it can sound organic. The EMAX has a stereo master output plus 8 individual monophonic outputs. These monophonic outputs can only play one voice at a time. These appear on the master patch bay, so I can patch EMAX audio through the modular. You'll need to forgive my patch bay, it's a work in progress. It's very, very, very messy. So in this example, I'm going to use one of the samples I took from scraping a knife. And I'm going to run it through the modular and I'm going to put it through my old Korg delay unit. So this is the sample with no effects. Cool. So now I'm going to come over to the modular and I've assigned the EMAX to go out its output 4. So I'm going to patch output 4 into the input of the Korg delay unit. And we get this. Another extremely cool feature of the EMAX is that it's got a CV input, so you can control certain parameters via voltage. It also has a clock input, so you can drive its awesome arpeggiator via analog clock and analog trig signals. I want to keep the art of sampling alive, the craftsmanship of finding a sound, recording it, editing it, and making music out of non-musical elements. The world is full of sound, and samplers allow us to translate it into music. This month's track uses samples that I took during this recording session. Next month, we're going to look at the K2000. It was amazing when it came out in the early 90s, and it's still amazing today. Completely different technology. I also did a video on the EMAXII. There's a link to that in the descriptions. And remember to download the sample pack and use them and make crazy awesome music and also sample your own noise. I hope this has helped. I hope this inspires you to create something awesome and new using old gritty technology or whatever.